Hey everybody, welcome to the Sports in the Mitten podcast, powered by Mr. Spots in Ann Arbor. I'm your host, Adam Biggers, Michigan and Michigan State beat writer for FanRag Sports. And thanks for tuning in to this live session. You'll have to excuse my overly nasally tone, as Alex Brick pointed out yesterday, one of my favorite followers. He said, I made a comment about being sick. I got sick during travel in Chicago. I've been down and out throughout that in the week. Finally starting to feel better, but Alex was like, "You always sound nasally." So I guess it's a Michigan thing. I don't know. So anyhow, feeling a little bit better. So I figured, hey, why not? Let's do a podcast. It's Sunday, Big Ten Media Days in Chicago. Obviously, this past week, had a great time out there. Got some valuable information, that kind of stuff. Enjoyed it for the most part, but again, getting sick was kind of the sucky part. So. I want to make this one quick today. I know. Because I do have a couple things to do this afternoon, Sunday League game, and so on and so forth. So I want to make this one quick and go through some questions. I got a lot of great questions from you guys earlier today. But before we start, I want to encourage everyone to read this piece that I just wrote, posted on FanRagSports.com on Twitter at FanRag_U. It's on Maurice Hurst. He's kind of a unassuming, humble superstar. There's really no other way to put it. He's never been a guy who's really been out for attention. I've never gotten the impression that Mo Hurst has really put too much thought into the me stats, but after talking to him at Big Ten Media Days and talking with Jim Harbaugh, it's the opposite, and it's in a good way. It's not a cocky, hey, pay attention to me. It's like, hey, I've worked my ass off for 4 years, and it feels good to be recognized. So read that piece again. That's on FanRagSports.com, on Twitter at FanRag_U, and I tweeted it from my account at AdamBiggers81. It's on the Sports in the Mitten Facebook page, or will be. So don't forget to like us. And while you're at it, another plug. Go ahead and click the subscribe button to this channel. So let's start it up. Get a drink of water first. Always important to stay hydrated. And get plenty of vitamin C when you're sick. I could do it like Marlon Brando, or I could do it just normal. First question comes from Chad Hankins at 24 Hankins C. Any hidden gems that Michigan fans may have forgotten about that may have a breakout year? Not any big name known guys. Hashtag go blue. Chad, that's a good question, because first, as soon as I read that question, as soon as I saw it, first guy that popped in my mind was Lawrence Marshall. And if you remember Lawrence being recruited, he was one of the top defensive linebacker, maybe outside linebacker. I think Lawrence is going to have one of those years. I think Lawrence is going to figure into the 2 deep on the D-line. If he's not at least a regular, he's going to be... God, and I don't want to compare just to throw in... He's going to be one of those grinder types. I can see him, maybe if he's not regular 2 deep, but which I think he will be, but Lawrence is going to see a lot of playing time this year, and I think, down the line, when we're talking about the strength of the defensive line, because I do believe Michigan's defensive line will be the strength of this team again, even though it is young, and we'll get into that in some areas. I think that this is going to be one of the big strengths in the linebacker position as well. But I think down the line, we're going to be talking about who's this guy, who's contributing a little bit other than the bigger name guys, and who's been a really strong who's had a really strong presence as a supporting role, and I think that's going to be Lawrence Marshall. I really do. So, assuming he stays healthy, everything's a go, as far as I know. Lawrence, watch out for Lawrence Marshall. And of course, there are others, and we'll get into that. And hey, Chad, that actually gives me a great idea for something to write. So thanks. I'll probably get on that and write something about that next week. Who are these under the radar guys? I mean, we're all paying attention to the 2016 class, right? I mean, this is the class that's. I know that I think that, and I think a lot of others do. So that's an excellent question. Next question comes from Robert at 35, Robert 16. Who returns kicks for Michigan this year? Robert, let me eat a piece of my orange real quick. And I can tell you who's not going to return kicks, and I'm going to assume punts as well. We'll talk about punts too. It's not going to be Jabril. It's not going to be Jordan. We know that. But I think Eddie McDoom is a strong candidate. I would not doubt, in maybe some situations, maybe Khalid Hudson or Josh Metellus, and people are like, well, similar athleticism, kind of in the same. Well, I don't want to disrespect Jabril in any way. Jabril was kind of at his own little level, right? But I think that Josh and Khalid being the Viper, the heirs to the Viper position, similar athleticism. I would not doubt to see. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say. I would like to see Josh and Khalid. I think Eddie McDoom's pretty much a shoo-in, right? And I mean, I don't know. Maybe they throw a receiver in there. Maybe Donovan Peoples-Jones. It's wide open, right? It's in camp. Our camp starts tomorrow actually, so we'll start having availability. That'll be a question, and I'm sure they're probably not going to come out and say it, but through questioning and everything, I'm sure that we'll be able to learn a little bit. But right now, I would definitely keep an eye out on Eddie McDoom. I think Eddie, if he's not the fastest guy on the team, he's one of the fastest, and he's got great hands too. And like I said, I cite this play, and I was really impressed by Josh Metellus and the Orange Bowl. I mean, Josh can cover some ground on the field. It's different when you're not running into coverage. He scooped up that 2-point conversion. Everybody was behind him. But at the same time, Josh has pretty good field vision. I feel like he's athletic enough to make some plays. I think he's got good hands too. But I think probably the obvious guy would be Eddie McDoom. So appreciate the question. Robert? This one comes from Michigan versus Nation, and this is at Andrew Burris. Andrew is a steady follower, always asking questions. Is Michigan DL deeper this year than last year? Excuse me. Mo, Shan, Chase, Ron, John, Kemp, Aubrey, Jeter, Luigi, Dwumfor, easily 10 to 12 deep. Well, I mean, there's easily 10 to 12 guys that we're gonna consider, right? And this one kind of got a little, because I think it got misinterpreted, and I'll read the question or the response in a little bit from a different user on Twitter. But in terms of potential, I mean, I think it has to be. I mean, the expectations are the same, right? I mean, it's Don Brown's defense, it's Greg Madison's defensive line, and which has been his defensive line, since he's been back at Michigan. I mean, the past 5 years, although he's bounced around, I mean, Greg is the architect of the defense, particularly the defensive line. I mean, Greg's the one who, was really a big factor in Rashawn Gary's recruitment. And, Rashawn Gary obviously is one of the best D-line. He's being looked at as one of the best D-linemen in the country. Last year, he proved that he's for real. I mean, he wasn't just some good true freshman. This kid's ready for college football, and he's going to play in the NFL. We all know that. So, as far as deeper, I mean, it's hard to say the number one defensive line for the past 2 years. Matt the Destroyer. Hey, Matt, welcome. Thanks for joining. Hopefully, you don't mind my nasally voice. Getting over a cold here. If you have any questions, just go ahead and type them in. I'm reading them off Twitter right now. Potential-wise, I find it hard to believe that the expectations and the potential, I guess, for lack of a better word, is right there, aligned with what it has been in the past couple of years. And yeah, it's not like, okay, well, Ryan Glasgow's gone, Chaco Charlton's gone, Chris Wormley's gone, Matt Godin's gone. Yeah, all those guys were great players, and you don't just replace a guy like Taco or Chris overnight. But at the same time, Michigan has recruited well. It's still the same coach, Greg Madison, still the same philosophy. I mean, yeah, they're going to be young, but I think these guys are going to be just as athletic, just as strong. I mean, it's improvement, right? And I know it's only year 3 of Jim Harbaugh's tenure, but look at what Greg Madison's done since he's been back at Michigan. Improvement. Yeah, they lost some guys, but to think, okay, well, it's going to be a drop now. I can't really see that. I mean, it's like I said, it's hard. It's going to be hard to replicate the number one defense in the nation. I'm not saying that Michigan's going to have the number one defense in the nation, but Don Brown certainly has a track record, and Greg Madison certainly has a track record. So I think that the Michigan's defensive line's in good hands. And again, we're talking guys leading it right now like Rashawn Gary, Maurice Hurst, Brian Monet is going to be a factor. I've heard Dwumfor, Greg Madison talked about Michael Dwumfor during the spring, so I'm expecting him. Kyle Kemp, Luigi Villain, as far as maybe defensive end, or even Jim Harbaugh was talking about him in the linebacker group too, so I'm assuming outside linebacker, but we might see him bouncing in between there too. So 10 to 12 deep as far as, okay, you expect 10 to 12 guys to contribute? I don't know. I mean, last year they were 9, 10 deep easily. 8 very strong. So I don't know if it's going to be as deep, but I think the potential to be as deep and the potential to be as good. This Florida game is going to say a lot. So I want to reserve some of my judgment until we actually see them play, get through camp a little bit. So, and then Andrew wanted to know, age-wise, the experience isn't there, but talent-wise, this DL might be deeper and talented as a whole than last year. I mean, it's a very optimistic viewpoint, but like I said, I can understand why you feel that way, especially, I mean, if you hear someone just rattle off like what I just said about Don Brown, what I just said about Greg Madison. I think if you're going to have high expectations year in, year out for any one position group at Michigan, it has to be the defensive line. For as long as Greg and Don are tandeming, it has to be. Matt the Destroyer, what are your predictions for the Florida game? Well, I want to get in through camp a little bit before. I think it's going to be a close game. Initially, I gave the edge to Florida. The Gators will be missing their leading returning tackler, and again, that was like back in spring. I'm going to do updated expectations for the 2017 class, and probably go through camp. Once camp finalizes, I'll set out like my official predictions for what it's worth. So it's going to be a close game either way. I see it being something closer. Put it this way, okay, Florida in the Citrus Bowl, no. Florida State, I know it's a different school, Florida State in the Orange Bowl last year, I think it's more like that. It's not 41-7 blowout. I think it's going to be, low 20s or high 20s kind of shootout, maybe 33-32 like we saw in the Orange Bowl with the Seminoles. So I expect a game like that. Next question. This one comes from Ty Ramoy, at Ty Ramoy, RAMOIE_14. One of the best catchers in high school baseball in the Flint area that I've seen. And I know a lot of other guys, older guys, who have seen a lot more players agree. Hell of an arm. Ty went on, he was very good at Mott Community College. He went on to play at Grand Valley State, and he's a Davison alum. And funny fact, I'll actually be playing, I'm 35, so I'm old enough to play in the 40 and up league. And I'll actually be playing on the same team as Ty's dad, so I'm old. Anyway, Ty wants to know who, besides Spate, is the quarterback of the future? Milton, Peters, McCaffrey, or any others? This is the question everybody wants to know. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead. Matt, hit me back with that one in a second. I'm going to answer this question from Ty. That's the question everybody wants to know. With Jim Harbaugh, that is going to be the emphasis all the time. Quarterback, quarterback, quarterback. I mean, right now, Peters, you know how I think everybody knows how I feel about Wilton. It's Wilton's show until Wilton leaves. And I think that, if he has a great year this year, something comparable to last year, this will probably be his final year in Michigan. Those are just my personal thoughts. As far as the next guy in line, I mean, Brandon Peters seems like to be the next guy in line. I really like Joe Milton. And Joe's got hell of an arm strength. He's got a little bit of accuracy issues. I think he was like 47% completion rate last year. But, again, he's young. So, and he's not signed yet. So if I had to choose, let's just, two guys that are on the roster right now, I think McCaffrey redshirts this year. Peters or McCaffrey. I know that Harbaugh really likes McCaffrey. I think it's Brandon Peters is right now. I think it's going to be Peters and Milton competing for that next job. Those are just my thoughts. But I would give the edge to Peters. I think maybe Milton pushes him. Maybe we see some competition in year 2 or after Brandon's first year as a starter, his next season, then a little bit of competition with Joe Milton, possibly. So, but yeah, I think right now, if I have to say the QB of the future after Spate, stock answer, it's got to be Brandon Peters, because I think he is the solid number 2 right now, and just kind of line of succession kind of thing. And Matt, I'm sorry, Matt the Destroyer, I saw something about Eddie McDoom. I'll answer your question right now. Do it one more time for me, please. I'll answer it right now before I get to the rest of them. And I'm waiting. Do I have time? I have time to eat some orange while I'm waiting for you, Matt. We're going on 16 minutes, guys. I want to try to keep this about 20 to 22 minutes because I am on a slight time crunch. Matt, how do you think Eddie McDoom will be used this year? Will he be used like last year, end round, deep threat? How do I think Eddie McDoom will be used this year? Yeah, probably just like he was last year. And I think it's going to be maybe a little bit spreadier with Pep Hamilton too. So maybe we see a little bit more of that. And not only a little bit more, but maybe kind of elongated and more dramatic. I think this offense is going to be a little bit flashier. And when I say flashier, not gimmicky, not gadgety, just quicker. Just kind of more powerful, more speed. That's what I'm expecting. So Matt, that's a great question to answer that. I expect the same role for Eddie McDoom. I think Eddie expects that too. I remember in the spring when I asked him if, maybe there's any if he expects any expanded duties, he said, he'd do whatever they asked him to do. I think Eddie's probably going to be involved in the punt and kick return games as well. So excellent question, Matt. I appreciate it. And guys, if you're watching this and if you're on YouTube, Matt is asking me questions from his YouTube channel. So, or as a YouTube user, I don't know all the ins and outs of YouTube. But anyway, you don't have to just do it on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. You can actually ask them live on YouTube. So follow Matt the Destroyer, 1234 is lead. And yeah. Okay, next question. And this, okay, I want to read this. MGoBlue1687. This is at the reply to Andrew Burris's D-line question. He goes, LMAO, no. Michigan definitely had more talented depth last season by far. Well, yeah, and that's easy to say, right? Because and MGoBlue1687 cites later, NFL players. Well, yeah. And those guys are all upperclassmen. So, I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, the older guys that are established, experienced veterans were very good last year, and they were part of, 2 years running one of the best probably the best defensive line in college football. But in Andrew's defense here, Go Blue, I mean, and like what I just said about the recruiting and the coaching and stuff, I mean, it's not like we're just going to see a massive drop-off. And I think you could go two ways with that question. I don't think it was a direct comparison as this guy is player A or player B who was a backup last year. Is he better than player A who was last year's starter? Well, because of course not. He wasn't, because he didn't start. But at the same time, when you have what Madison's had for the past 5 years, just a stable of guys who are ready to go, it's impossible for me to think that talent-wise and depth-wise it's not going to get to that. Is it right there now? No, because we don't know. We haven't seen it. But I think what Andrew meant is, can it get there? I believe so. Matt the Destroyer, do you think Michigan has a chance to make the Big Ten championship? I do, but I like Penn State. I know everybody's picking Ohio State. I think Ohio State wins the Big Ten, but I really like Penn State. And I know that there's people out there who are like, oh, I like Penn State. So I think Michigan's going to need a little bit of luck just to win a division title, let alone, make a series. Of course, you got to win the division title to make a run at the Big Ten championship game. But I think that's kind of got to be the focus right now. I mean, I know the big picture, Big Ten championship, but I think right now, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm thinking, okay, take care of business the rest of the way. You can win or lose at Florida. I don't think that makes or breaks your season. It can definitely give you momentum, but a loss isn't going to, especially early neutral site loss to an SEC opponent, isn't going to immediately count you out, and that's not a Big Ten game, right? So at the same time, I think focus on that. They got to take care of business. But if I'm Harbaugh, it's how is Michigan going to beat Ohio State? How is Michigan going to beat Penn State at Penn State? So, and don't forget about Wisconsin. That's tough too. So, But Penn State, Ohio State. In my order, I go Ohio in the East, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. That's what I'm thinking right now. I mean, I'm not totally discounting Michigan's ability to possibly surprise, but I do think that it's Ohio State and Penn State are the two best teams in that division. So, JoJo Go Spate at JoJo Go Spate, I think it is, at Go Blue JoJo 1978 wants to know secondary. Or it's more of a comment. Secondary and OL surprise or be the Achilles. Okay, it's a question. Secondary and OL surprise or be the Achilles of this team this year is my question. Hold on, guys. They both have that potential of JoJo to be the Achilles. I mean, the offensive line, right? I mean, last year the offensive line improved, but all throughout that, and I remember talking extensively with like Eric Magnuson and Kyle Kalis about that. I mean, they were always kind of, fighting that, okay, Michigan's offensive line is the issue thing, right? And those guys worked really hard to establish themselves last year. I mean, they were pretty decent last year. They were okay the year before, but yeah, the offensive line has kind of been the most inconsistent piece of Michigan's offense. As far as the secondary is concerned, I mean, as long as the defensive line and the linebackers can help apply some pressure, and I remember talking with Braylon Edwards at Big Ten Media Days in Chicago, and you guys go ahead and check that out. It's on my page as well, a couple videos down. As long as the defensive line can, he used the terms of, coverage sacks. Help get some coverage sacks. Just apply great coverage a little bit to where it's not necessarily all on the secondary, if that makes sense. So, the linebackers and the defensive line are going to be a major help because the secondary is relatively young, but again, it's David Long and Lavert Hill. It's not like I'm looking at these guys as they're nobodies. And Matt, I'm sorry, it just disappeared from me, man. Something about USC. If it's a USC question, I'm the wrong guy to ask, unless you're talking about Penn State and USC in the Rose Bowl. I know I'm not a USC expert by any means. Let me get to this next question. And Maurice Ayat also had it's wait or see. Good depth. If the young ones hadn't developed, it could potentially only go 8 deep, and that's in reference to the defensive line. So, and Maurice, yes, excellent point. But again, I mean, if they don't develop, I mean, it's almost like if the sun doesn't rise tomorrow. I mean, what's been the MO of Greg Madison so far? What's Don Brown's MO? Development, improvement. So I'm not trying to be a cheerleader for you guys and pump Michigan fans with false confidence or anything, but it's pretty plain to see to me that as long as Greg Madison's there, as long as they're recruiting the way that they're recruiting, I'm not particularly worried about the defensive line. And I think this one is Wayne Hillian, and this is for the punt. And I didn't mention Chris Evans. Chris got one last year too. So throw Chris Evans in that pile of possible punt or kick returner as well. I could probably see more or less more as a kick returner. And let me see. And Andrew and MGO Blue Sense have kind of had their exchanges. I'm talking potential. This is Andrew. Adam hit the nail on the head. I'm talking potential. These recruits are highly rated and from a talent standpoint, deeper from top to bottom. Go Blue last year, and now you have true freshman backups. Depth it isn't even close. Deeper this year than last year. Then lists a bunch of freshmen who are redshirting. You had NFL players across the board, and two. You guys are passionate about this. Go Blue 1687. I think you slightly misinterpreted Andrew's angle. So, but you make sense too. I'm not saying that you don't. Mo Hurst and Rashawn Gary is backup for Christ's sakes. The depth doesn't come close to compare last year to this year. I mean, it's funny potential. Yeah, Go Blue. I think you're kind of going off on a tangent there, man, a little bit. But yeah, Andrew. First of all, take a deep breath. Maybe I worded it wrong, but I meant from a talent standpoint. I think it's a good discussion point. Andrew, it's all good. I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. right now, Maurice Hyatt, right now it's only paper talent. We'll be able to better understand the depth by week 5 or 6. Well, exactly. But I mean, at the same time, weren't we saying the same thing in 2015 and 2000? I mean, in 2016, we hadn't even seen Rashawn Gary play, and people are already crowning him as the next great Michigan defensive lineman. So it's I feel like some guys like the argument where it better suits them, and then I don't want to get in any arguments with you guys on Twitter. So all right, I think that's all the questions. Really interesting questions, you guys. If you have any questions, always feel free to tweet me at AdamBiggers81. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Mitten Sports MI. Don't forget to like the Facebook page, Sports in the Mitten. I want to again thank Tim and Keith down at Mr. Spots in Ann Arbor, 808 State, MrSpotsAnnArbor.com. Steak, sandwiches, wings, waffle fries, Monday press conferences. I can't wait. Simply cannot wait. It's going to be a great season as far as press conference food. I can just feel it, and game day food. Michigan does it up, guys. I highly recommend if you want to watch a football game and get free food, apply for a media credential, and hopefully it works out because it's a pretty good deal. So again, read that piece on Maurice Hurst that I just posted at FanRag Sports, at FanRag_U on Twitter, FanRagSports.com. Unassuming star, Maurice Hurst. He's always been a humble guy. Like I said at the top of the show, I've never looked at Mo as a guy who's necessarily like, okay, give me attention. Quietly, head down, working, and now that people are giving him attention, he's like, okay, I like it. He actually said he loves it, and the video's on there on my YouTube. It's also in the article as well. So one final plug for everything. Follow my co-host Thomas Bendit, BT Powerhouse rather, not BTN, BT Powerhouse on SB Nation. He and I will be doing a show together soon. Had technical difficulties when we weren't able to link up today, but we'll be doing that. And as camp rolls through, starts next week or tomorrow, actually. And forgive me, I'm a little sick here. Getting my dates mixed up. I do that anyway. I don't have to be sick. So as camp rolls through, as the season gets going, we'll be having at least 3 times per week. So be geared up for that. The new site, new Blog Talk radio network, all that stuff going up, and of course you'll be able to see the live stream as well. So we're hitting 28 minutes. I want to let you guys go. And thanks again for watching. I'm Adam Biggers, FanRag Sports Michigan and Michigan State beat writer. I appreciate you guys watching today. Follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. Have a good day.